You know how sometimes things start like innocent enough and then. Yeah, this one got away from me. So the Titan has this horrible, like, tiger stripe camo stuff on it, and it's just awful to get that smooth. Why did I decide to get rid of the tiger stripe camo? I don't know, but once I started, I couldn't justify stopping and only having it on half of it, so I had to finish it. And that took 18 hours. I measured, actually. Me sitting on the floor, blasting some music, and just sanding for 18 hours. I did this over about the course of a week, and by about the second day, my phone stopped recognizing my fingerprint to let me in. So I redid the fingerprint in my scanner, and within about 4 more hours of sanding, it was back to not recognizing my finger anymore. When I tell you that I didn't have fingerprints, I literally mean that in a measurable way. So after that sanding nightmare was finally over, I went out to my favorite paint store and I had them mix up a custom color to match my... Not important. So the paint went on pretty easily. It was 3 coats of primer, and I went through about 2.5 cans. From there, it was the purple, and I just laid on as many coats as I could get out of the 1 spray can that they made up for me, and then finally the gloss. So originally, I did up the barrel as white. Unfortunately, the clear coat yellowed, which is really, really obvious on white. So I had to sand the barrel all the way back to bare plastic. Second time. So after doing a couple of test pieces, it became pretty clear that there wasn't going to be any way I could stop the yellowing, which meant that I had to take a different approach. So I went back to the paint store and had them mix up a custom silver for me. I did a few little tests and realized that the LEDs shining through the barrel, through those little slits, just weren't enough for me. I was glad I ended up coming back and doing a revision of it, because I think that the final product I ended up with was better than the white would have looked had it come out properly. However, it was a ton of work. I had to go through and use several pairs of clippers and clip out that whole area. I couldn't get away with using something like a Dremel because the clearances were so tight that I couldn't afford any mistakes, and a Dremel just has a habit of running away and melting plastic. For the translucent nameplates, I machined out some polycarbonate with some indexing holes on the back for the 3D printed letters. From there, I did some light sanding and a matte clear coat in order to get that frosted finish that'll diffuse the lights really nicely. I'm really glad that I ended up going this route because the lights shining through the nameplate are just so much better than some vinyl logos that I stuck on. I want to talk about how I approach electronics projects like this, because from the outside this can seem really scary and daunting. There's just so much going on. But the truth is, they're all just really simple circuits. So if you try to think of how am I going to come up with a circuit diagram for this whole project, you're going to get overwhelmed really quickly. When I'm doing a project like this, I never think of what the whole circuit diagram is going to look like. I just have to know that I know how to wire every single part. So for this, it was pretty simple. I know how to wire some LEDs, so I just did that. From there, I knew how to wire some motors in, so I just did that. And working through every single part of the project piece by piece so that you don't get overwhelmed like that. The motors for the flywheels are pretty simple. They're just hooked up to one MOSFET, power on, they turn on. But for the pusher and the barrel rotation, they both require PWM and motor braking in order to get as precise control over them as you need. I did this by running them through both a relay and a MOSFET. The relay handled switching it on or into brake mode, and the MOSFET handled pulse width modulation. I know you can do a similar thing with just 2 MOSFETs, and I have done it successfully in the past, but I really wasn't happy with the safety factor. If your microcontroller crashes and leaves both MOSFETs on, that'll cause a short circuit through your battery, which can cause it to catch fire. So all in all, there ended up being about 80 total solder connections, which sounds like a lot, but again, when you break it down into small pieces, it really didn't take more than a few hours to do. I tried to pretend that I would be happy with the barrel just landing wherever it did when you stopped firing, but after about an hour of playing with it, I went back in and added some barrel indexing. What that practically means for those of you that don't speak nerd is that I installed a switch so that when the barrel came around, when it hit just the right location, it would send a signal to the microcontroller which would immediately stop it in its place. I wrote some code so that it wouldn't stop spinning until it hit that specific position, at which point it would hard brake so that the nameplates would be visible on both sides and aligned with the LEDs on the inside. There's about a full meter of addressable RGB strips inside of this thing, which means that when it's on, it lights up everywhere. Outside, inside, doesn't matter. In fact, they were significantly brighter than I intended, and that caused another problem. If I spun up the barrel at full speed with the lights on, it would flash so brightly and so frequently that I was really concerned that I would give myself a migraine and potentially cause others to have a seizure. I won't include any footage of that for your benefit and for mine in editing. That made me really glad that I had put the extra effort in and made the barrel rotation speed adjustable with PWM from the microcontroller. It was a pretty easy fix to set it to about 5 or 10% speed, and it worked fine. When the motor starts up, it actually gets a brief little blip of power before dropping down to its final speed. That way I can run it much slower without worrying about stalling the motor on startup. So all the code for this project is based on an old blaster I did a few years ago, Gavin, which means that all the features from the old project got ported over to the new. So obviously there's the big scrolling rainbow that speeds up when you pull the trigger, as well as when the drum empties, the whole thing flashes red to let you and everyone else know that you're out of ammo. Oh my god, this project was so stupid. There is not an amount of money that you could pay me to make another one of these, but I love it and I'm never going to get rid of it, which means that I'm going to dominate all of the piddly little Nerf wars that my friends start. So now that we're done with all that nerd stuff, I spent $80 on this outfit, and it takes half an hour to put it on. So you'd better believe that I got some glamour shots. Thank you everybody for watching. This project was really expensive and time consuming, and I really would not have been able to do this without my patrons. If you'd like to join, I'll put a link up, and if you'd rather do just a one-time donation, I'll put a link for that in the description. Thank you everyone for watching, and I still don't know how to end videos. Oh my god. Boys think taking off bras is hard. Try a corset. Don't. I'm free.